Welcome to another ArcticAT 650H1 video. Today's video we're dealing with the cylinder rebuild. We're going to put the used cylinder on, we're going to hone it, and we're also going to install this Wiseco piston that I picked up. We're going to see how this one's going to compare to the stock one. Now at this part in the video, the head is already removed, so if you want to learn how to remove the head, you can go to another previous video that I will leave a link to at the very end. Anyways, let's get started. So at this part of the game, the only thing we should do to remove the cylinder itself appears to be two bolts right there, and this coolant pipe, which has another beautiful Torx, is going to have to come off, and then that cylinder should just lift right out. Actually, that broke free quite easy. Turn this lightly now. This hose should just wiggle out. There's a better view. Uh-oh, O-ring, O-ring. Definitely want to be careful of that. We'll add that with the rest of our pieces. Now, turn this back. Those two 10mm nuts. Now the cylinder should just lift off. We're gonna wiggle it. Come on. Come on. What are you stubborn about? Okay. Gotta be careful. We don't drop that chain down there. Oh, there we go. Well, that wasn't too bad at all. Definitely got some wear on that piston though. Now, if you're going to reuse this piston, I would probably use a little bit more finesse when removing the cylinder, because doing it the way I did it could have easily damaged it. But I'm not using this piston again, so I really don't care. And there it flew off and hit the floor. So you saw how that pin just came flying out. It's another good reason why you want this covered with rags. That way it doesn't fall down below in the engine, because that would really suck. Now this pin, this piston pin, should just slide out. So I can use a 16mm socket, which is just slightly smaller. Oh, now we're free. Remove the piston. There we go. Ready to start honing this. I'm not a big fan of these stones. I prefer the ones that have like a whole bunch of little balls. But all we want to do is just take the glaze off, and there's still some cross hatching in there. So we don't have to get crazy with this at all, because this cylinder is basically almost brand new. So I got some cutting fluid here. We're going to spray in the cylinder, make a couple passes with that. We should be done. I'm going to spray some of this cutting fluid in there. Make sure everything's nice and lubricated. So that's about as far as I'm gonna go. I got my crosshatch pattern. Now I'm gonna take it inside and wash it in the kitchen sink, because I'm not supposed to use brake cleaner to clean out the metal filings. You're supposed to use hot water and dish soap. Yeah, if you're married or had a girlfriend, she caught you doing this, she'd probably skin you alive. Yes, make sure you wash that cylinder out nice and good with dish soap and hot water. Make sure all those little metal filings are out of the way. Normally you'd coat your cylinder with an oil or something, but since we're probably not going to get to this till tomorrow, or maybe a little after, I'm just going to spray some WD-40 in there so the cylinder wall doesn't rust. Okay, the first thing we're going to do before we start assembling the cylinder is that we're very carefully going to get the old gasket off. Just like so. There. That Let's install these piston rings to how Wiseco wants them installed, which is different from what the factory manual says. Well, that's the way they want it. That's the way they get it. Always be sure to check the ring gap before you install the piston rings. First ring is the oil expander. We're now going to install the bottom oil ring. And then we're going to put the top one in. Throw this top ring on. Markings to the top. Top ring should go on pretty easily. Throw this top ring on. Markings to the top. Top ring should go on pretty easily. That other ring, that bottom ring, compression ring, was really stiff. Here we go. All rings are in place. One thing you want to check for is to make sure that your oil ring is butted up correctly, like it shows on the instructions, a point, just like we got. At this point in the game, you want to lubricate the piston, you want to lubricate the piston pin, you want to lubricate where the pin's going to go inside the connecting rod. Make sure everything is lubed up. I inserted one wrist pin in first. It was a little bit of a pain. Installed the piston onto the connecting rod with the orientation of the piston in the correct method. And then this part was a little bit of a struggle, is the bottom of the cylinder is beveled, so I was compressing each ring by hand and sliding it up into place. It was a little bit of a struggle. There's a couple methods I tried and failed, but this method was the one that worked. It was a little bit frustrating. Once the cylinder is put down in place, you want to make sure that the timing chain is still on the sprocket, and make sure you slide the guide into the proper position. The cylinder is installed. This was not one of my most graceful moments. I got set up at top dead center now, so when we installed the head and the camshaft, this was kind of a little bit of a nightmare, dealing with the wrist pin and then trying to get the piston in the cylinder. We got it in, timing chain and the guides in place. We're ready for the head. Well, I'm going to end the video there of honing the cylinder, replacing the piston, installing the piston rings. One of the most things you got to do during the installation is to check your piston ring gap. If the piston ring gap isn't set up properly, your piston rings may butt up, and that could score the cylinder. Always double check that. I didn't go too much in depth with that because I don't want somebody to watch this video and see what I'm measuring and then use that measurement in something they're doing, because the measurement is to the application that you're using it for. That going forward, everything is set up. The next part of the video series is we're going to put new valve seals in that spare head. We're going to install the head, torque everything down, and we're going to be good to go. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk to you guys later.